Welcome to the EPG Padashala, the lecture series in computer science for the postgraduate program. This is the compiler design paper and we are on the last module, module number 40. So, where we will be discussing about procedure optimization as a last resort, though not much work is possible sometimes with this optimization, we still have some room for optimization in the procedures and functions. So, here to understand the procedure optimization techniques, to understand the concepts involved in inter-procedure analysis, though I am not going to go over all the concepts involved in inter-procedure analysis as well as procedure optimization. I will be discussing brief on what is typically or what could be done for sure without compromising on the effort. Okay, we already know the thumb rule on optimization, it should be worth the effort. Okay. So, whatever is definitely possible that can basically be handled, I will be discussing only those modules here because this itself is going to be a huge topic. So, we will not touch upon it much. So, these are my keywords here. So, procedure optimization, you typically look at tail call optimization versus tail recursion elimination, and procedure integration versus inline expansion, and then you have leaf routine optimization versus shrink wrapping. So, these are the three and its pair possibility for optimization on the procedures. So, typically we know what happens during a call. When a function call happens, what happens we already know, we have done with reference to runtime storage management, where we have talked about the activation record, the calling stack, and then the activation record having 7 fields, and information gets passed there, it is saved, and it is then the callee is invoked, and then we basically save the addresses, save the contents of the caller, etc., and then you invoke the callee. So, typically you have a caller where you have to decide on the parameter passing technique, the caller saved register information, the return address branch, and the program counter, all those will be saved in the particular activation record, and then the callee's parameter will be passed, and that will be closer to the callee's activation record, and you have a prologue and an epilogue there of the callee, where you have saved forward pointer, compute the stack pointer, and then the callee saved register will also be there, and the callee saved register, return value, and other pointers and branches will be there in the epilogue. So, you have a prologue and an epilogue in the callee. So, now to context switch is what we are trying to look at. Now, typically what happens is in the optimization perspective, you have a less chance to optimize between procedures. So, that is a very difficult task, as I already said. So, whatever is possible, that alone we will basically handle in this particular module. So, for example, we have a concept called as tail call as well as tail recursion. So, a tail call and a tail recursion differs only slightly, that is, here a tail call is you have a function f, and then you have a last but one statement called as g of x, where it is trying to call one more function g using the same argument x, okay, and then there is a return statement. A function is said to be a tail function, or a call is said to be a tail call if that function call is happening as the last but one statement of a particular function, that is, it is just before the return statement of a particular function. And then tail recursion, the same thing, but it will be a recursive call, that is, it is going to call itself. Okay. So, you know that factorial, we know that how do we write factorial, it is typically using a recursive call, it is a tail recursive call. So, you just do that as a last resort before doing anything. Okay. So, this is basically done, and you can basically avoid this by converting this into a loop. So, here eliminate procedure call overhead. So, effect of tail recursion is to eliminate the procedure call overhead, and it has to, in the process of eliminating, you will also enable loop optimization. So, consider this particular example here. I have an insert node function which is typically in a linked list, which is going to take an integer n and a structure pointer L. Okay. If n greater than L arrow values, L arrow next is equal to null, and you create a new node, else you insert node n comma L arrow next. So, I have it as a next node. Now, this is a tail call. okay, and the tail recursion because it is calling itself. Now, to get rid of this, I can use the same function parameter. I am using basically what called as a label loop, and then if n greater than LRO values, if LR on x is equal to null, you call make node, and else say L is equal to LR, that is you increment this pointer and you go to loop, that is converting this recursive call into a iterative call is what you are trying to do here. But it is not going to go into iteration, you are indirectly going into iteration, but you are simply using a go to statement to go to this particular loop. So, in what happens in every iteration, you simply increment the loop to go to the next pointer. So, this is how you get rid of tail recursion, which is because you have the procedure call overhead, which could basically be avoided. So, here this is effect of tail call, which is function call basically here. Now, I had this calling another function called as make node. If LR on x is equal to null, call make node, okay. Then I had some statements. So, here this can also be avoided, okay. So, where you will call make node and then that will be doing this. So, two problems of high level implementation happens here, branch into the body of the other procedure. So, in that case you have to have the local scope of parameters. So, determining tail call, the routine performing the call does nothing after the call except return itself. So, here this is what we have done as tail recursion elimination. So, tail also can be eliminated in a similar fashion. So, replace the recursive call by assigning proper values to the parameters and branch the beginning of the body and the procedure. So, this is what we have done. This is using one more example, okay. So, delete the return after the recursive call, okay. So, this is what we have looked upon. So, the next one is tail call optimization. Both procedure bodies should be visible to the compiler. You can use that in the same compilation unit, or you can use do it using an intermediate code. You should exactly know about the callee. So, where it expects to find its parameters, where to branch, and the stack frame size, all these things should be known. The stack frame size is our activation record size. So, those things should also be known for performing tail call optimization. So, replace the call by three things. So, evaluation of the arguments and putting them where the callee expects to find them, and if the callee stack frame is larger than the caller's stack frame, an instruction that extends stack frame as difference should also be available, and a branch to the beginning of the body of the callee will also be available. So, and also there should be a return call. Also delete the return after a call. For example, here insert node R2, R1, so you have to do a call make node and then return. So, what you basically do here is, rather than calling, you simply say go to make node and then delete the return statement after this. So, this is called as tail call optimization. Exactly like tail recursion elimination, tail recursion you just do it within the same loop itself. So, here you will do a go to that particular make node, okay. So, this is what is tail call optimization as against tail recursion elimination. Both are handled in a similar fashion only by converting a procedure call to a iterative call, an indirect iteration basically. The next one is procedure integration versus automatic inlining. So, this is called as automatic inlining basically. It replaces calls to the copy of the procedure of the body, and the call is typically unknown effect of the objects in the procedure on aliased variables is basically looked upon. The local code is you have it will have an expose effect and it can enable more optimization. So, here it is better than inline of C++ and is optimized by user's intuition. So, this is similar to the inlining which we normally adopt in C++ programming. So, this is called as automatic inlining. So, the procedure integration issues is there will be a range of inline procedures and you need to save intermediate code representations, and the language of the caller and the callee could basically be varying, and they can have different parameter passing conventions. So, that should also be handled. You have external language name, procedure name, declaration to specify source languages should also be available here, should be made available, and saving intermediate code of inline routines should also be possible, and it depends upon the purpose of saving intermediate code. So, here you need to compile a copy of the whole inline procedure, that is also a issue here, and the address of the procedure has to be taken into account for where will I get it basically, and calls from other compilation units which is currently invisible should also be handled. Inlining on recursive procedures, which is not to be done, but how do we handle that is also going to be an issue. So, and can be valuable to inline once or twice, but inlining for more than that will also be a drawback. So, what is the thumb rule for inlining? So, the goal should be to reduce your execution time to the maximum possible extent. Inlining every procedure typically decreases overhead costs of call, increases the object code size, it has more cache misses, and compilation terminates only by exhaustion of resources. Okay. So, we need heuristics or profiling feedback to find out which procedures are worth inlining. First, what we do is find out the procedure whose body size is very small, okay, and it is called only lesser number of times, okay, and it is called inside a loop, okay, and if it is in the case whose call includes a constant valued parameter, those information, if it satisfies, if all these four are satisfied, then you can include that procedure as an inlining function. So, how to perform inlining? Three major issues to handle. The parameter passing technique should basically be considered, and name conflict should be resolved. Conflicts between source symbol names and detect conflicts and rename symbols of called procedure should also be done. And then static variables makes only one copy of the static variable and it is initialized only once. So, these three things are done for performing inlining. Next is leaf routine optimization. A leaf routine is typically defined as a leaf node in the call graph of a program. We will see what is a call graph. So, we have already talked about dependency graph and control flow graph. We will see what is a call graph also. And that routines will not call any other procedure, and typically many procedures are leaf routines only. So, it is something like a leaf node of a particular tree, okay. So, that is it is a leaf node in the call graph of a program, okay. And to optimize the leaf routine, simplify the way parameters are basically passed here. You remove the procedure prologue or epilogue, and it is done with very little effort, okay. This is done typically with very little effort. So, you identify the leaf routine and look at this basically is defined as the one that is not going to call any procedure, and typically all the procedures are leaf routines only. And so, to optimize that, simplify the way parameters are being passed. So, how do we take parameters? How do we maybe a global parameter here would help, and it is highly desirable with very little effort. This should not call any other routine, so it is obvious. It is also depend upon the architecture. How many registers and stack the procedure requires, that should basically be found out, and it requires no more registers other than the caller saved registers. So, the caller will have in the activation record some saved registers. So, it should not, the callee should not be requiring more than that number of registers, and it requires no stack space with sufficient registers. Leaf routine optimization is typically combined with shrink wrapping, where the prologue and the epilogue are basically moved, okay. For example, say this is your loop, and this is my prologue and this is my epilogue. So, I will bring this prologue closer to the body and I will move the epilogue also closer to the body. Epilogue, and I am moving down prologue in this example and increasing my loop from here to here. So, this is what happens in shrink wrapping, which is a leaf routine optimization thing. So, moving prologue and epilogue code to contain a smaller part of the procedure inside a loop and making many copies of codes is what we basically do. For example, here this is the body of my loop here. So, here I have a greater than b and I assign a is equal to 1 here. This I will assign c the value of a, and then here I will assign the value of c is equal to b, and then I have my epilogue here. So, what do I do? I have to move prologue closer and I have to move the epilogue also closer. So, what will I do? I will just call a save function. So, where I will save the value intermediate result of a and b here, okay, and because here a is anyway getting reassigned here. So, I will save the intermediate value here. Similarly, I can also save the value here. So, this is one optimization technique which we call as shrink wrapping. So, this is also possible with respect to the graph. Move the prologue and epilogue code to enclose minimal code segments, and it should not be contained in a loop. and you have to maintain correctness. So, you should not change arbitrarily, that is also very essential. So, this requires data flow analysis of the particular control flow graph, and identifying them, the position of where to move your epilogue or where to move your prologue is to find out the problem of anticipating a variable's information, or it is also looked upon as a available expression computation algorithm to find out global common sub-expression elimination. So, position of prologue and epilogue to be moved can be looked upon as a data flow analysis problem itself. Now, inter-procedural optimization, this is across procedures. We have seen one thing is this tail call elimination and tail recursion elimination. So, inter-procedural analysis involves gathering information about the whole program instead of a single procedure. So, rather than looking at it as a block by block, as a basic block by basic block, we already know we have a basic block for a particular function only. So, across that we can look at as a global as a wholesome program, and then construct the basic block to identify inter-procedural optimization. So, the program transformation that involves more than one procedure in the program can basically be derived to find out positions of optimizations. So, here this will be done using two analysis problem. One is the mod analysis, other one is called as the alias analysis. In mod analysis, you have modification and reference side effect analysis. So, consider this example, common x comma y, and do I is equal to 1 to n. You have a function called to p, and after that you have x of I is equal to x of I plus y of I, and then you do a do. So, that is you are calling a function inside a loop. So, you can vectorize this procedure. Neither, if the procedure p neither modifies nor uses x, and it is also not modifying y. In that case, it can basically, I can vectorize p. I can vectorize if this p does not do anything with x comma y. If it does, that will result in what is called as a reference side effect. So, here mod of s is nothing but set of variables that may be modified as a side effect of a call at statement s, and reference of s is set of variables that may be referenced as a side effect of call at s. So, it can be referenced or it can basically be modified as a side effect of call at s. So, here x does not belong to reference of s naught, and x does not belong to modify of s naught, and y does not belong to modify of s naught. If this is satisfied, then p can the value of x and y basically can be used without any affecting the call to p. So, in this case I can basically vectorize S1. Okay. Then is alias analysis. So, we have also already looked at alias analysis with respect to the pointers. Now, in the context of procedures basically. So, it would be efficient here to keep x and y in different registers and store in x outside the loop, because x is equal to x plus y into a of I. I am not changing x or y. Okay, I am simply changing the value of a of I only. So, I can use that, but here if there is a call s of a comma y comma n, okay, in this case then y is aliased to x on entry to s. So, you cannot delay update to x in the loop anymore. So, alias p comma x set of variables that may refer to the same location as a formal parameter x on entry to p. So, this is what we define. So, you have to also look at alias analysis, modification analysis and side effect analysis. So, modification, reference side effects can basically happen in the context of inter-procedure optimization. Now, when there is a call a comma y, then y is alias to x on entry to s. Now, we have mentioned what is called as a call graph, because the leaf node in a call graph is capable for leaf routing optimization. So, you normally construct what is called as a call graph G with n comma e, where n is the number of nodes and e is the edges. So, n will be, there will be one vertex for each procedure, and e is there will be one edge for each possible call. So, edge p comma q is in edge list e if procedure p calls procedure q. So, that is your call graph construction. It looks easy, but construction is difficult in the context of so many variables and so many procedures and arguments being passed. So, here for example, look at this piece of code. subroutine S x comma p, call p comma x, return. So p is a procedure parameter to S, and what values can p have on entry to S is what's going to be a big question. So call of S, set of all procedures that may be invoked at S, that is what we call as call of S. So we should look at the values of p that is possible at entering this particular subroutine S. So it resembles closely to the alias analysis problem only. So you have to be careful on understanding the value that gets passed to a particular procedure. So 3 graphs are typically used in the context of optimization. Of course, there are other graphs also possible like value graphs and so on and so forth, dependency graph, etc. But these 3 graphs are very essential. The first one is the call graph, second one is called as a binding graph. The binding graph says that one vertex is available for each formal parameter of the procedure, and there will be a direct edge from formal parameter f1 of p to formal parameter f2 of q if there exists a call S is equal to p comma q in p such that f1 is bound to f2. So you construct what is called as a binding graph here. The next one is the control flow graph, which is typically we have already looked at this, where each node corresponds to a set of instructions or and a set of instructions, all will be 3 address code information, and there will be an edge defining between the blocks which is indicating the flow of control, and there is a dependency graph which we have already looked upon in the semantic phase of the compiler, where which variable depends upon which variable for its attributes. So that is indicated using the dependency graph. So the value graph is the next one, where we can say what each value corresponds to. So that is given by what is called as a value graph, etc. So now these 3 graphs are typically used, and the call graph is used for identifying the leaf routine optimization scenario. So I have just given an overview of the optimization techniques in this particular module for procedure is concerned. Now on to some concluding remarks of this particular course. We have looked at the phases of the compiler. We have also looked at some tools that could be used as part of the compiler, where we have discussed the lex and the yak tool, and we discussed the 6 phases of the compiler in the context of lexical phase, where we defined automata, regular expression, and then converting one from the other, need for that, etc. And we also looked at how to define patterns using automata or regular expression, and we also discussed the advantages and disadvantages of each of these particular representation for lexical phase. And finally, we also said that instead of going ahead with this, we can define the regular expression using the in the lex tool itself, and the lex tool will basically tokenize and give us the tokens and the corresponding lexemes associated with it. The next phase which we discussed was the syntax phase, where we looked upon the top down and the bottom up parsers, where we looked at LL1 parser here, and we looked at SLR, canonical LR, and look ahead LR parsers for bottom up parsers. We also looked at the operator precedence parser and the simple shift reduce parser as additions. And then the third phase, where we looked at semantic phase, that involved type checking of statements was discussed, where we looked at constructing a dependency graph, how to assign attributes to variables, what attributes can a particular variable take, that was discussed in semantic phase. Again, the input to semantic phase is a syntax tree, output would also be a syntax tree that can be represented either as an abstract syntax tree or as a value numbering scheme representation. We also talked about runtime storage management, on how a call is basically handled. When you make a function call, how it is basically handled was also discussed. And then we also talked about the symbol table and how to remember scope information in the context of symbol table. That is done with reference to the intermediate code generation, where we looked at 3 address code. We also looked at how to represent these 3 address code, and how to generate 3 address code for all the programming constructs. Everything is converted to a if and a goto. It can be a conditional goto or it can be an unconditional goto. And we also looked at an important concept called as backpatching in the context of intermediate code generation. And then we looked at code generation based on simple code generation, a DAG based code generation, a dynamic programming approach to code generation, as well as a template based approach to code generation. Anything can basically be used, but all those requires corresponding data structures and corresponding the representations for use basically. Then the last thing is we looked at code optimization, where we converted the 3 address code statements into what is called as basic blocks, and these basic blocks were represented either as a control flow graph or as a directed acyclic graph. And then we tried to optimize within the basic block, which is local optimization, or across basic block called as global optimization. So, where we looked at the transformations as structure and function preserving transformation. We also looked at how to compute data flow analysis as well as control flow analysis. We looked at an important concept called as peephole optimization in the context of board optimization. And finally, we concluded with the procedure optimization, that is the last topic which we discussed in this module. So, to summarize this module, we have looked at procedure optimizations. The possibility of procedural analysis was discussed, and thank you.